Annie, who is in the asylum, and we meet all the asylum characters at the very, very start of the play, as the first scene is set in the asylum. And then my other character, Jonathan, is actually in the scene after, so it's scene 2, as Jonathan starts the sort of Mina's story and the sort of journey of the play, as it's Jonathan that starts the story to go to Transylvania to meet Dracula.
Van Helsing comes in a bit later. Basically, once Lucy has been bit by Dracula and starts to change, Seward writes to Van Helsing as his old tutor and very good friend, and that's when I arrive. That's when you first see me.
So I was actually first involved, it was December last year, was the first research and development that I got involved in. And there was quite a few ones before that. I think it's been going on for a couple of years or so. So that was the first one I was involved in, which actually was the whole sort of concept of trying out Jonathan, which was in the process of me getting the part. So I done the R&D, the week R&D in December. And then Sally, the director, got in touch and said, you know, that she'd really love me for the part, but obviously the Aberdonian accent is quite a key thing in this play, especially for Warner's writing. So if I could do a voice audition just on the accent. So I had an hour with a voice coach, and after that hour I had to send in a voice tape of me doing the Aberdonian accent to all of them, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Which was quite hard because I've never had to do a voice accent audition before, but it was a good challenge. And anyway, so then that was that, sent that over, and then they got back in touch saying that that's fine, like we want to go ahead, there's going to be a voice coach on anyway that can help you. Yeah, and then we done another R&D, that's with everybody.
That was when I joined,
Yeah.
I had an audition, and I think it was one of those, obviously Van Helsing is such an iconic character and has been played in so many weird and wonderful ways. In the audition, they kind of went, would you improvise? It was a lot of improvisation. They said, you know, would you improvise? And gave me a few parameters. And when they were describing the character, it was in the audition room, I went, that sounds like my Afrikaans uncle. Do you mind if I do it in an Afrikaans accent? And they were like, yeah, give it a go. And Sally leapt off her chair. It was really wonderful. It was a lovely audition, actually, because I did it in this really, you know, rough Afrikaans, thick Afrikaans accent. And Sally was like, that's amazing, that's it, and loved it. So I feel like sometimes you take a chance and it pays off, you know?
Absolutely. Well, specifically for me, it was obviously quite a bit on the accent. So our voice coach, Jo Cameron Brown, I had like Zooms with her prior to rehearsals, leading up to rehearsals, so that I felt comfortable going in, you know, first day, that, you know, I felt like I could just try it. And so for me, it was the accent, but also as well, we got given a bit of the script that they had. Obviously, it wasn't that much because obviously we were devising quite a lot of it. For me, that was just getting the bits that I had that I could hold on to and just making sure that I've got those in my head and understanding the character like really well, so that when we go into rehearsals and we're trying new things, you know, I'd know exactly what Jonathan would do in this moment or say in this moment, because you've already got all that research in your head from this material that you've already been given. So that was really useful for me. But also as well, just like being so open, because we also had no idea what the 6 weeks of rehearsals was going to bring. And just being open to having fun and just throwing yourself into it and being willing to fail as well.
I mean, same thing. I got really excited when we were told we'd be devising a lot of it, because that's been my journey as an actor. I think I've done a lot of devising and working on new work, and I love it. So I was really excited about that. I was really excited about the idea of ensemble building, because that I know of Sally Cookson's work, that it's very important to her that there's she starts from ensemble, and I loved that. So we did a lot of ensemble building in the beginning, a lot of playing in the room. I wanted to go to the original source material, so read Dracula. So we come back to the source material, but then we go, okay, we've taken what we need, now let's forget that, and where does this springboard us off to? Into a new story, because it's Mina's story. I think it was discovering the style was interesting.
Yeah.
Sally encouraged us to think heightened, a slightly heightened style, still obviously connected to truth. Playing with that can be quite a vulnerable thing in a rehearsal room, because you're stretching that, you stretch it to the nth degree and then pull it back and kind of try and kind of find where the piece breathes. And I feel like we started to click into that. I think Van Helsing is bigger than...
I feel like with Jonathan though, like I felt
Do
like
you?
because I think
Okay.
for me as well, with it was the accent. So to do the Aberdonian accent, the only way I could do it was to do it like to do it,
Yeah.
to go really Doric and to just go for it. But then what came with that was actually a bit of my character as well, because I realised he was actually this very big, sort of, bit clumsy, hopeless romantic, but just so kind. Through that, I found the accent, and I found Jonathan's accent, because it's not the same as everybody else's, and people have said that,
Yeah.
it's we've all got very specific Doric accents, which you do in life anyway. Doing it in rehearsals without the costumes and without most of the set and stuff, it did feel odd, because you're just going for it. But Sally always said, you go for it and just go, and you can always pull it back. And I think that's the best way to look at it, because then you can see the potential of what it could be, and the place we can get to, and then we can pull it back from there. But
and do you think that Benji Bauer's music, for me, when Benji came in and kind of went, okay, well, this is going to be under this piece of text, all of us suddenly felt, whoo, you feel supported and you feel able to give, that kind of heightened performance. It feels, it just felt supported, I guess, is the best way to think about it.
Yeah.
And it changed things. Benji would play one piece and we would play out the scene, and then play a different piece of music and we'd play out the scene, and it would feel really different.
My probably two main relationships are with Mina in Dracula. When you first see Jonathan is when he asks Mina to marry him, and she doesn't say no, but she doesn't say yes. She just gives a very worried and confused look. For him, Jonathan going to Transylvania and meeting Dracula, he still loves Mina, and he knows that he's going to come back and he's going to try again. He's going to keep trying. But obviously in Transylvania, when he meets Dracula, Dracula's a person who just sucks the life out of him. So, Jonathan never gets bitten, but he gets, instead of blood being sucked out of him, he just gets complete life and love and happiness. And, because Jonathan at the start of the story is such a happy, kind soul. And when you see him returning at the end of Act 1, just before Lucy's death, he's just completely traumatised. And that's when he sees Mina again. And Mina can see that in Jonathan, that he's just been through it all. And it actually relates to sort of, PTSD and things as well. That was a conversation that we were having with Sally, and, these traumatic events just staying with Jonathan, and then it obviously being triggered in the rest of the play when we're talking about vampires and he wants to help, but it's obviously really hard. But yeah, so he's got a bit of a journey, Jonathan.
So for me, it would be Stuart. Stuart is the only connection for me as Van Helsing. So it's reported that Van Helsing was Stuart's tutor, and they became fast friends, and they met in Aberdeen and drank pints in the Fitty Bar. But Van Helsing's quite a solitary creature with his cats. He has 2 cats that he adores, and clearly also adores Stuart. When he returns, you see that old relationship kick in, those patterns of tutor and student, where Van Helsing constantly questions in order to hopefully broaden the mind of his student, who I think Van Helsing gets frustrated that Stuart is still has become even more boxed. Stuart wants to know the answer, whereas Van Helsing is interested to search outside of the box and try and find, maybe it's not the most obvious answer. Let's look beyond. So that relationship was quite fun to play with, because it was comical, and a lot of the interactions, which are quite serious about really serious subjects, like trying to figure out what's wrong with Lucy, become comical because of Stuart's stubbornness. It needs to be something that's rooted here and now, whereas Van Helsing goes, but it could be. There are things that our science can't explain. Let's think beyond. So that's the main relationship, I would say. And then a relationship forms very quickly with Mina, because Stuart recognizes in Mina this exceptional student. It just happens to be she's a woman, oh dear. And so while he gives a lot of leeway to Mina, there's a moment in that relationship where it turns sour because Van Helsing recognizes this wonderful brain, but also is a man of his time, late 1800s, and at the pivotal moment when Mina wants to join the men and is actually thinking outside of the box much more than Van Helsing at that point. Van Helsing cages Mina by basically saying, you may have the brain of a man, but you are still a woman. So you will stay and you will be protected. And it comes from love and care, but at the same time, he's still caging this incredible, intelligent, and creative woman. So that's an interesting relationship to play, I think, because you think he's this kindly older man who's going to finally give her chance, and he ends up being just as bad.
Jonathan tries to propose to Mina, so no. Just going to Transylvania, because for Jonathan, he's a homebody. You know, he doesn't really want to go. He would love to just stay at home, but his boss couldn't go, so he has to. So that for him, I think, is a massive thing, just venturing out and going, traveling afar. And then after that, it would sort of be probably when Jonathan realizes that he is on his death row, really. And as soon as Dracula says, you're going to write 3 letters, he knows the time span of his life. And he knows exactly what date he's going to die. But that is what makes him then escape and risk his life to jump out of this castle and run for his life.
We had so many chats about Van Helsing's backstory. And I decided that, Van Helsing is part of a long line of vampire hunters and it's finally their turn, they've been passed down the baton, and recognizing I know these symptoms, and hinting in his letter to Suret, could this be something otherworldly? And I guess it's up to the audience to decide whether all of what I say in my first monologue is in the letter or not. I have decided, I won't tell you which lines, that there are a couple of lines that I do keep back.
Nice.
Yeah, only because I think that I understand that my student wouldn't be able to handle the truth. But yeah, that's a big pivotal moment, recognizing that this dark force that I know to be Dracula, the devil himself, has returned. And medically examining Lucy and recognizing the 2 pinpricks on the neck that Mina believes were caused by a shawl pin. I straight away recognized that, and the chat of red eyes being like confirmation. That's a big moment for Van Helsing. And then the moment when I realized that everything I've tried to do to protect Lucy has failed. The window's open. The devil has come and tricked us all, and there's a lot of guilt for Van Helsing, I think, because he shouldn't have left. He should have been there, but he hadn't slept in days, and he goes and he leaves 2 of them in charge with a stern warning. But yes, there's loads of guilt and a recognition that Dracula is more cunning than all of them put together. At this point, Van Helsing watches Suret completely enraged, decimating the dead body of his former fiancée. I think that's a big moment for Van Helsing, even though there are no words, because it's watching somebody that become something that feels very alien. And it's
animalistic.
Animalistic, yeah, very, very, very. And Maggie plays it so well. But yeah, I think that's important for Van Helsing to recognize, actually, did I make the right decision? Because Mina offered another option, and he wouldn't listen.
I guess we pull it back and we sort of see it as from starting off as like from Mina's perspective. I think, if there wouldn't be, in my eyes, I don't think there'd be any point in doing Dracula just now to just do Dracula, the original story. I think there's nothing new, there's nothing relevant, and it's kind of us going back to the whole female, rage thing, and with the whole Sally wanting us to find a story based on that. And I think for 2023, for just now, I think by putting Mina in the middle of this story and, you know, flipping it upside down, I think it says like a million things, and it also is so out there, you know, and it's the female and non-binary cast playing men and almost, you know, taking the mick out of, you know, for example, Seward, the way he speaks, and, you know, the way that Jonathan, for example, as sweet as he is, he assumes that he is going to take Mina's hand in marriage, and, you know, all of these things, which now we just laugh at. We're like, oh, that's so funny, but that was there, that happened, you know, and that existed, and it's so important, I think, to see how far we've come, and also how far we've got to go regarding that. I think
that's important, because I think, for me, what was striking when I read Dracula again was obviously Mina Harker in the book is there to support the male characters in their huge, wonderful journeys. And some of the lines that, for example, Van Helsing says are directly from the book. It's a compliment in the book when Van Helsing turns to Mina and says, "You have the brain of a man." It's a compliment. For me, I think, while we have come a long way, while I was reading Dracula again, I was also watching the news and seeing women all over the world be refused a right to education, be tortured, abused, disappear for not wearing a headscarf correctly or not adhering to certain rules. Women rioting, cutting off their hair. That was all happening in Iran while I was, you know, reading Dracula. After that, having, you know, the right to education refused in Afghanistan. I felt like, wow, we have come a long way, and yet we're going backwards. Look at Roe and Wade and what happened in America with, you know, a woman's right to their own body. And that's something that Dracula offers Mina in our version. Your body will be yours. You'll be able to walk the streets at night without fear. You will be able to study what you want, build a library in the house that you own, not have to worry about taking a man's name if you don't want to. And that's not to say, and this is very important for me, if you want to take a man's name, that's absolutely wonderful. But it's the idea of being forced to.
It's a choice, isn't it?
It's about choice. And I think that's one of the huge themes that runs through our piece, is that it's about choice. And at the end of the piece, when Mina turns around and says, "Follow me if you want, it's your choice." You know, this is a leap of faith. I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not telling you that I will rule over you. I remember the first time I heard that, and the first time I heard Liz's monologue in the audition room, and I wept. Struck a chord. I hope that the themes are encouraging and beget conversation.
Yeah, conversations.
That in turn begets progression.
Yeah.
Those are your ideals. At the same time, we also hope people have fun.
Yeah.
And have a laugh.
Yeah.
And I think it has done that. I think speaking to folk after the show, it's been really interesting to see how much conversation there is and people disagreeing over certain things. And, you know, I love that. I think that's what good theatre does.